Today I show you my easy homemade bread recipe using all-purpose flour. To make this recipe, you're going to need 1.5 cups or 200 grams of AP flour. You're going to need 1 teaspoon of dry yeast, that's about 5 grams. You're going to need 1 teaspoon or about 6 grams of kosher salt. You can use table salt if you really want to. Then you're going to mix that together just gently to get everything incorporated. Then we're going to add 2/3 of a cup or 160 grams of warm water. Not hot, not cold, just warm. And now we mix this together. The idea here is just to get all the dry out of the bowl, get everything incorporated together, make it a nice homogeneous mass. Resist the urge to add more water or flour to this recipe. This is an 80% hydration recipe on purpose, what that means is the water is 80% of the weight of the flour. Makes it very simple and very repeatable. That high hydration makes for a really nice, light and airy bread at the end. I just like to scrape off that spoon a little bit, get all that little bits of goodness in there. You know, waste not, want not. Now we put a lid or some plastic wrap, if you don't have a lid for your bowl, on top of that, and let it sit for about 10 minutes. Now we're going to do what's called a stretch and fold. So we want to take a look at that dough, and you can see it looks a little raggedy right now. Dipping my hand in some warm water so the dough doesn't stick. Reach in, grab one side, pull it up till I feel tension, and flap it onto itself. Turn 90 degrees and repeat. Do this 4 times, so you go all the way around the dough. If you pull too far and it breaks, it's okay, but try not to. Then we put the lid back on, wait 5 more minutes, and we repeat the process. By now the dough looks a little bit smoother, not too much. I am wetting my hand again so it does not stick. It is still very sticky. What we're doing is creating gluten and structure in that dough so that it'll stretch and catch all those bubbles when it actually goes to rise. Notice how it looks a little smoother already. And I just like to round it out a little bit so it has a nice flat surface. Not absolutely necessary, it's just a habit. Then we wait 5 more minutes. And again, this will be our 3rd stretch and fold. So we remove the lid and take a look at that dough. It's already puffing up a little bit. You can see that it's starting to rise, but you'll see the stretch. It's much smoother, much stretchier, more elastic. That's the idea. We are creating gluten. Sometimes people knead dough. Well, when it's this hydration, it's very difficult to. But that high hydration gives those nice big bubbles and a nice soft, light, airy bread. You can see it pulls right out of the bowl. And again, just shaping it so that it looks all nice. Put the lid back on. 5 more minutes. Okay, here we go. Number 4. Take the lid off. You can see it's puffed up even more. That dough should be a lot silkier and smoother now. It doesn't stick quite as much, so I'm not using as much water on my hands. But here we go. Last set of stretch and folds. And you can see it's a lot smoother and silkier, and it pulls right out of the bowl. It supports its own weight, but it does stretch. You go just till you feel tension and then stop and flip it over. Once we're done here, we want to let this sit for about 30 minutes to final proof. Okay, the dough has proofed, and we're going to remove the lid. I have a little bit of flour there just for dusting the board. You can see it's puffed up, doubled in size easily. Let me just get a little bit of that flour on the bench here. This is to prevent stickage. We do not want this to stick anywhere, and I also have a little plastic scraper there. You'll see the use of that in just a minute. Flip it right out. Let it fall out. It'll do it all on its own. Gravity is a wonderful thing sometimes. And there we go. And I missed the flour completely, but yeah, that's okay. Just scrape it off the board. That's what the scraper's for. What we want to do is get some flour underneath that so we can start shaping this dough. And I'm just literally making sure it's not stuck to the board. Try not to get too much flour on the surface. Now I'm picking it up and treat it kind of like a pizza. You want to just kind of stretch it out a little bit and make it into a bit of a square if you can. And then we start folding it up. And I'm literally just rolling from the top, flipping it in and rolling it up somewhat tight, not too tight, and shaping it into a loaf. And from there, it's all about shaping and creating tension. What tension means is the surface is going to be a little bit drier than the rest. And that can act as a mold, sort of, to hold that dough in place as it starts to rise. Notice how jelly it is. It just bounces all over the place. Okay, I put a little flour on top just to create even more of that surface. I didn't feel that there was enough. And I'm folding the end under, folding the other end under. I'm going to flip it over just so you can see what the bottom looks like. Not the prettiest thing ever, but that's okay. I want to make sure that's a little bit more smooth. And now I'm just going to seal it up again, add more tension again. You can over tension, but it takes a bit of work to do that, so don't worry about that too much. That's a sheet pan with a non-stick cooking paper on top of it. You can use parchment paper if you want. See, there I am popping those bubbles. They just kind of annoy me. And then one swift movement, scoop it up, get it onto there, and flatten it out again. Retension if necessary. Shape it up a little bit, no problem. Let me just scrape some of this excess flour out of the way so I can set the tray in there, and we'll show you what to do next. Now that we have it on the sheet pan, I want to get a really nice, light, clean towel, and I'm just going to open it up, and we're going to lay it over the top nice and gently. The idea is here, we just want to keep drafts off of it, that's all. And this is going to sit for about 20 minutes while the oven preheats to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, our 20 minutes has gone by. Let's take a look. And it's puffed up just a little bit. It's not huge, but a little bit bigger than it was before. You can still see it's very jiggly, and yeah, that paper will slide right off of there. But it is a good 3 to 4 inches high. Now it's going in the oven. 20 minutes in the oven, and here we go. Look at that, nicely browned. You're looking for about 200 to 205 degrees Fahrenheit on the inside of that dough. Notice the heat-resistant gloves. I'm going to put this on a cooling rack. That way the bottom doesn't get soggy by sitting on a pan, and that's going to cool for a solid, let's give this about 45 minutes before we cut it. Okay, 45 minutes into it. The bread is nice and cool to the touch. You can just see that. It's a beautiful color. And now we're going to cut into it and show you the inside. It's very soft. That crust isn't too thick, just thick enough. This is great to make like sandwiches with or meatball subs. And look at the interior of that. Nice and soft, very spongy. You can see as I compress it, it bounces right back. The smell in here is amazing right now, guys. I wish you could smell this, but that's bread. There you go.